Hi guys, my name is Ramsey and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about something that I work with a lot, and that is errors. I face errors on a daily basis on N8n, and if you're anything like me, then you have to deal with them as well. And usually the way I work around it is by attaching an error workflow to any workflow that I have in production. So for example, I have a sample workflow right here. And what I would normally do is I would click on this, I don't know, what do you call it, an ellipsis or whatever. And then I go to settings, and then under settings, there's this little line that says error workflow to notify when this one errors. And then there you can attach whatever error workflow you have. I have a special workflow called error handler. And you can build an error workflow yourself. It always starts with an error trigger. And then from there, you can do other stuff with it. Like for me, it's just sending an email to my Gmail. For you, it might be a Slack message, what have you. And inside that Gmail, maybe I'll have like some variables like the workflow name, which are coming from the error trigger really. And some other stuff like maybe the type of the node and the name of the node that errored out and the error message. And this is just some variables here. I know you might be wondering, what is this N8n editor base URL? This is just like a neat way to grab the base URL of your N8n if you're on the self-hosted. So that would be like, for me, it's in n8n.intelemate.com. So I would grab it and you can set it in like your variable section for your primary instance. I'm on queue mode on Railway. And what I'll have is a variable called N8n editor base URL. And it's just like my own domain. So anyway, that's just to explain that little bit. And then I'm going to grab some other variables and we'll see them in production. You get these from the previous node. But now if I go to my email, it's going to tell me, give me a direct link to the affected execution. As you can see, it grabbed the base URL really well. The name of the affected node, the type of the affected node, and the error message, which says cannot read properties of null. Now, the thing is, when I see something like this, I'm just going to go to the execution itself, and then I'm going to try and debug. And sometimes I'll even go and get AI to try help me. Like I'll go to Gemini or ChatGPT or what have you. But then I had an idea, like what if you had AI debug the error, like give like a preliminary root cause analysis and suggested fixes thing that comes in the email. And then you sort of have an idea going in what you're working with, right? And so I thought I'd build an overpowered error workflow, and I wanted to kind of demonstrate that to you guys. So I have like a very simple workflow. By the way, error workflows only trigger in production. So if you have like a workflow and you're using the manual trigger and it errors out, you're not going to get like an email even if you attach an error trigger. It only works in production. So to work around that, I have this simple workflow. Initially, it had like a manual trigger, but then I added a webhook trigger and activated it. And the way I would trigger it is using a very special workflow that's just for triggering, where you click on execute and then it sends like an HTTP call to the specific URL of the webhook. Normally, I would get this from the webhook trigger in my victim workflow. So I call this my trigger workflow, and then this is the victim that's going to error out. And I just go to the production URL and get that. And once it does that, it goes to this like this cool free API called Request, Request. Request is just really cool. So what you do is you'd go somewhere like Request. If you want to like test REST APIs, you can get like a free API key. It's literally the same API key for like everyone. It's Request free v1, you know? So you go to your request, and like you can make it a request to grab like user details. I'm just gonna like run it here manually. So if I click like on start and run this workflow, you can see it errors out around the Gmail. So when I'm getting user data, and I'm gonna share the template files for all of these, you can see return some data like an ID and email for a Janet Weaver, first name, last name, and some other stuff like an avatar or whatever, right? And then it goes to a set email variable. Now I've purposely made this erroneous. If I were to do it correctly, I would be pulling, because I'm just getting the email of the user, I would be pulling from here and would have it correctly. But I did it differently. So I could just say get user data, which is really this place. It's the same as what I have with JSON. If you look at like, if I pull it directly, it'll be the JSON just here, right? and it says .data.email. But instead, what I have here is .item.json.email. So I didn't include that little data handle. So it gets like an undefined value. Now, when I come to the Gmail, where I'm just sending like a welcome message, I'm going to be sending it to the user email, right? But this is going to be a null value, so we know this is going to error out. And then I just have like some other stuff like welcome aboard, and then I grab their first name, and then hello, we're excited to have you. We'll be sending important updates to this email, and then I grab their proper email address, by the way. And actually right now it says null. So what we really want is to make this error out in production and then get like a basic error message. And then I'll show you how to make a workflow where you can actually have an AI debugger figure it out for you, and then you get the email. So you have like some context. So I'm just going to have this run in production, and the way it would work is I would get this trigger. I'm just gonna close regress. I would get this trigger right here. Where is it? Where are you? Is it this one? No. Is it this one? Yes. So if I execute this, it's automatically going to call my victim workflow. And you can see here, if you look at the executions, you'll see that it literally errored out right now. Don't worry about this. It does that sometimes with the UI, but you can see it succeeded here. So it called it and we have an error. And if I go to my email address, I should be having an error message right here. So you can see it just gives me the direct link to the affected node, the name of the affected node, the type of the affected node, and the error message. So what if we wanted something more, like a root cause analysis and a suggested fix? That's where an overpowered error handling workflow comes in. With this one, you have the same error trigger as before, but then what you do is you call the N8n API to get the workflow JSON of the specific workflow that errored. Remember, you're getting from the error trigger, you get like the execution ID and you get like the workflow ID and stuff. So literally all you have to do is construct this URL. Right now I have it as a raw URL, like I told you, sorry. You have it as a raw URL and all of that, but you can always have the N8n base editor URL in here. Actually, I might just copy it. But the reason I did this was for testing purposes. So if you're doing like some testing, you can just have the raw URL. And I'll actually just walk you through it before I change it back to the end variable. And then of course you have your N8n API key, which you can get, by the way, by going to your settings right here, and then N8n API, and you can create an API key. It's that simple. So the call would be to basically N8n.intellimate.com API v1 workflows, and then the workflow ID, which comes from the error handler, right? And then you will insert a header with the value, a header parameter with the key X N8n API key, and then the value. And it's going to get the entire workflow JSON. You can see the result here. You get some nodes and you get like everything about the workflow JSON, when it was created, when it was updated, the ID, the name, whether it's active, and a whole bunch of other information. And then we have a debugger agent. Now for this one, I just have like a regular AI agent node. And for the system message, I'll just share that with you. It says you're an expert N8n automation developer and debugger. Your task is to analyze a workflow and provide a clear, actionable diagnosis and solution. Do not be conversational. Provide the analysis directly in Markdown. Feels like a really rude command, but I got that from AI and it works so. And then in the user message, this is where the magic happens. As usual, you will be doing the same thing: the workflow name, the name of the node that failed, the type, and the error message. But then you will also give it more context by pulling the JSON from the previous get workflow JSON. So you would get like the previous items JSON stuff, and I have JSON.stringify here just so I can turn that JSON object into like a string, because when you're sending these messages to your AI agent, you kind of like want everything to be a string when it's going out. And you can see here, it just does everything really well. And then you give it further instructions. So based on all the information above, please provide the following in Markdown format. A root cause analysis, which is a brief explanation of what likely caused this specific error in the context of the workflow. Analyze the failed node and the nodes that feed data into it. And then a suggested fix. Provide clear step-by-step instructions on how to fix the issue in the N8n editor. Be specific. For example, if it's a rate limit, suggest adding a wait node. If it's a data mapping error, explain which expression is likely wrong, and so on. And you can play around with this prompt however much you want. And you can see that the debugger does like an output thing. And then basically here, since it's outputting in Markdown, we have a node for converting Markdown to HTML, because when we send our email, it's going to be in HTML. And you just drag in the output into the Markdown, and you have like a destination key. For me, it's just response.html. And then basically you have the debugging email sender. And for this one, you can grab the workflow JSON name from the error trigger. And for the actual email, you have like a direct link to the affected execution, the name of the affected execution name, and so on. And then you add another section that says that with the response.html from the AI agent. And never mind, I'm going to share the workflow templates for all of these, especially for this particular error handler, so you can see how it works under the hood and you can play around with it. Now, I'm just going to actually set this right now to the N8n editor base URL, because like I told you, I have it with just like a raw thing. Ideally, if you want it to work well in production without you having to remember what your base URL is, you would do something like this. Let me see, do I have my error trigger here? You just grab this variable right here. So the N8n editor base URL right there. And you'll have to set this in your end variables. This is mostly if you're on self-hosted. If you're not on self-hosted, it's gonna work fine on cloud, I think. Not sure, but it's been a while since I used cloud. So here you would just add that. Actually, it would be something like, so it's an end variable, so it should be something like that, I think. Might not work actually, just because we need this, we need like a $sign right before that to make it like a proper expression. So the $sign goes there. And I think we could actually do something more. So what I usually do with this, and I know it's because of the way the N8n whatever thing works, so you will have backticks to turn this into a string literal, just like that. And then here, and then so this just says like, hey, I'm calling a variable, and it'll be N8n editor base URL. And then for the workflow ID, it'll be kind of the same thing. So you're just gonna have the same thing around it. So you're gonna have a grabber for that, and then you're gonna close that like so. So I'm not sure if this is gonna work this time, but let's just have it that way. And it might error out. I wonder what you call when your error handler errors out. But anyway, and what do we have here? We are literally going to have a lot of the same stuff. So I'm just gonna copy my base URL right here. So we're doing that. That's the end variable. We're just gonna have that there, right where I have my original thing happening. And then I'm gonna get rid of that. And then, so it's gonna say undefined for some weird reason. I'm gonna have that. So it's gonna be undefined when you're in testing, because this thing only runs in production, because it literally takes it from the environment variables. That's just like a security thing. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other end. So we're gonna copy that, and because this is like literally, what do you call it? An anchor tag, because it's supposed to be clickable and all of that in the end. And you have that, and so it's gonna say undefined for now, but the true test comes in when we look at how it works out. So Okay, so for this one, I just realized we're going to need to add that and that. And now it should be okay. So it's going to say undefined now. So this is just to make it an expression, but it will resolve in the final one, I hope, or else I'm going to look like an idiot. But let's see how it works. So now we come back to the original workflow where we were erroring out, and we're going to come to our settings right here. And we're going to go to the error workflow, and instead of the error handler, we're going to have the overpowered error handler, as I called it, because it's overpowered. It's completely OP. And I'm going to save that. And then now we can do our cool test and see if we can trigger it. So still executing the workflow, just do that, and then try to execute it again. And let's see. Again, does the thing, I'm sure if I do that, it's just going to show that it actually triggered, but yeah. Now, presumably it'll have called my overpowered error workflow, and we're just going to check real quick to see if we have an email. Do we have an email? No, we do not. So that means it's probably an error. But let's look at it and see if we have any of those. Oh, it actually sent out an email. It did. So I should be getting an email. Did it send it to me? Should have sent it to me. Okay, let's see. We should probably get it here. It might be something to do with my internet. Okay, there it is. And now you can see the environment variable resolved correctly. We have my base URL. We have the name of the affected node, the type, and then we have an AI Debugging Assistant analysis. And it clearly tells me the error cannot read properties of null in the send welcome message, indicates that the to field received a null value instead of a string containing email address. And then it traces the data flow and says the set email variable node attempts to extract the email using the expression get user data.item.json.email. This expression is incorrect because it's missing the data key. Remember what I told you? There was supposed to be a data key. Where is the set email variable node? It's supposed to be a data key here, right? So if I were to actually do it correctly, it would be json.data.email, right? So that was what was missing. And it tells me that correctly. And it's because the expression is wrong, the user email, blah, blah. And then it gives me a suggested fix. And this just makes your life a lot easier because now when you get error messages, you kind of have a view of what exactly went wrong, and you can set this up to talk to your Slack or whatever when you're getting these. And then it makes it much easier to debug your N8n workflows. So that's pretty much it. I would love to see what you do with this kind of workflow because you can do so many other things. I mean, you could do it, you can make further processing, you could log it to a Google Sheet where you have like a database of all your errors and what caused them and stuff, and do some more tracking and so on. But yeah, next time you are building an N8n workflow and you don't want the headache of not knowing where, if there's an error, so that means attaching an error handler, and not knowing any more details about the error or how you could fix it, then you can have an AI-powered error workflow. Otherwise, until next time, ciao Bella. Bye-bye.